So hello everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for shooting in portrait mode. Uh, it's the easiest way for me to hold the phone at this point. I want to do a little video here. Go ahead and say this up front. I'm not a professional YouTuber by any stretch of the imagination. But I do want to talk about this on here, so hopefully it'll help somebody else out that might be facing a similar situation to what I am. As you can tell by the title, this is about pulmonary embolism, which is something I suffered from not too long ago. I'm going to tell you my story and what happened with me, and hopefully if you're experiencing any of the symptoms, then I guess I could quit rocking. Hopefully if you're experiencing any of the symptoms, you can get yourself checked out. For weeks leading up to the onset of my condition, I complained to pretty much anyone that would listen about a great deal of fatigue. Fatigue was mainly in my lower body and my legs. Really affected how I functioned, both at work and at home. I didn't have any energy, didn't have any drive to do anything. I kind of marked this up to my work being very physically demanding, and it's summertime in the South, so I kind of marked it up to that, and didn't look much beyond that. I had a history of varicose veins in my left leg. Those had been checked out some years ago, and I'd been given an ultrasound searching for a DVT at that point, the deep vein thrombosis, but they didn't find anything back then. My family went on vacation, my wife and my little girl, my mother-in-law. We went to Myrtle Beach, and the ride down there, I'm a tall guy at 6.5 feet tall. When we got to there, 4-hour journey by car, I noticed that I had some pain in my groin area and some tenderness in my leg, but I didn't think anything of it. I had developed a cough, and this had been, we had an upper respiratory infection that had been going around in the area for some time leading up to this, so I thought that I'd caught that. So the entire time that we were on vacation, I didn't have any energy, slept most of the time we were there, really just didn't have a whole lot of fun. When we returned home, I had a few days off after being away, and again, didn't spend time doing any of the things that I really wanted to do or need to do. I did the barest minimum to get by. So when I went back to work, very difficult to work. I work in a rail yard operator, operating locomotive, moving rail cars around. Very kind of a physical job. Really just didn't have it in me to do that. Could not perform. The Thursday before I was to be off for my 3-day weekend was brutal. To put it bluntly, I was suffering from a high degree of nausea, coughing, couldn't catch my breath. So I left work early, went home, and for that weekend, basically just laid around the house and didn't have any energy. Had these weird chest pains. It's not like a heart attack chest pain where you have this massive lump of pressure. It was little spots here and there and across my lungs that were giving me troubles. I went through that all weekend long. My wife asked me, "Do you want to be seen?" And no. I wanted to soldier through it. So Sunday evening, I went into the kitchen, and my wife was in there, and I said something to her, and our cat followed me in there, and I picked her up. I went into our den. I sat down on our love seat, petted the cat for a second, and the cat jumped down and everything got dark and everything got cold. Like that, I fell out, I hit the floor like a stone. So the next thing I noticed was my wife trying to revive me. So she finally got me semi-conscious and took me back to the bedroom, put me on the bed, and I sat there and just basically gulped for air. Couldn't catch my breath, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So I kept waiting, saying, you know, well, we'll see if this straightens out, if this resolves, and it never did. During this entire time, I had those weird little pains all over my chest. It was never any really huge burden. You know, you hear about with a heart attack, somebody has a huge weight on their chest. None of that. So finally, we decided that I would need to go to the emergency room. My wife said, okay, well, I'll get you in the car and we'll go. And I said, I don't think I could make it to the car. And after a discussion about that, the ambulance came and got me. The EMS guy said, you know, I'm not going to pull the stretcher all the way in the house. We'll just pull that stretcher out here on your front porch and I'll help you get to it. And that didn't work. As quick as I stood up, any physical exertion, and I went down. Once we got to the hospital, you know, of course, on the way to the hospital, you know, I'm asking the EMS guy, you know, what do you think's going on with me? Do you think I'm having a heart attack? And that had been ruled out very, very early on. But once we got to the hospital, my hands were so cold that they couldn't get an oxygen saturation on me. The nurses had to go get blankets out of the blanket warmers to warm my hands up enough to get an oxygen reading on me. They sent me for a CT, and I'll never forget that CT. They rushed me into that CT, and they did that CT quicker than I've ever seen anything like that ever done. And I used to work in the hospital, so there were two CT technicians that came and got me. One took me back. The other one was busy sending my results to the doctors, and the other one was rushing me back into the ER. I had 3 IVs in my arm. A lot of danger there that they felt that I was, you know, real mortal danger. I guess if I want to say anything about this episode, it's that get checked out. My situation was I spent 3 days in ICU, went to a step-down unit for a few days, and now I'm home on oxygen. Now the oxygen, I won't be on this forever. I have a heart monitor now because I went into AFib while I was in the ICU unit. So they want to make sure that I'm not going into AFib more. My recommendation is if you're feeling fatigued in your lower extremities and your legs, if you have that shortness of breath, this built up over time. It was not something that just happened overnight. Go get yourself seen. You know, do a copay with your insurance. You know, your $35, $40, $50, $100 or whatever your copay is, definitely worth it to preserve your life. This could have turned out very, very badly on my part. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try and answer them. But I hope that this will inspire you to get checked out. If you have varicosities in your legs, get those looked at, because that while the varicosity didn't create the problem that I have, it's definitely a telltale. So you need to have that looked at. Just take precautions. If you're prone to blood clots, you definitely want to take care of it. Like I said, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I certainly hope you get checked out if you're having some of the symptoms that I described.